Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. It's a great honor to be here at the JAINA convention and to meet all of you and to speak to you about Mercy for Animals and the work that we do. So my name is Vandhana Bala. I'm the General Counsel of Mercy for Animals. And Mercy for Animals is an international farmed animal protection organization. We're dedicated to preventing cruelty to farmed animals and providing compassionate food choices and policies. Mercy for Animals is based in Los Angeles, California. We've been advocating for farmed animals for almost 2 decades, but we have staff all over the country and now more and more all around the world. For those of you who are not familiar with the term, farmed animals are animals who are used in food production. These are the animals who are killed for meat, the hens who give us eggs, and the milk that is used, the cows that are used in milk production. We're one of the only groups that focuses exclusively on farmed animals. And many of you may ask why. The reason is because of the numbers. In the US alone, each year, over 8 billion, billion with a B, 8 billion land animals are raised and killed for food. And that's not even including the significantly higher number of fish and marine animals. This number of farmed animals who are raised and killed for food, that's greater than all of the other forms of animal abuse and exploitation combined. All of those other forms only make a mere fraction of the number of animals who are used for food. So by focusing our efforts on farmed animals, we are able to have the greatest impact. We're able to help the greatest number of animals and reduce the greatest amount of suffering with our efforts. I have a couple of colleagues here who are in the room, and they will be passing out email sign-up sheets. I encourage you all, please give your email, get our newsletter by email, or you'll get updates on things that are happening in your area, so please take a moment to do so. Mercy for Animals focuses our work through 4 main program areas: Undercover Investigations, Legal Advocacy, Corporate Outreach, and Education. And the focus of my talk today is to go into each one of these areas, explain to you what I do, what Mercy for Animals does as an organization, talk about some of the biggest issues facing farmed animals today, and tell you about a lot of the successes that we've been having to help these innocent animals and help reduce their suffering. My goal is to shed some light on the plight of farmed animals to all of you, so that you will see that farmed animals are truly among the most abused and exploited beings on planet. The first area that I'm going to talk about is the area that people get the most excited about. This is our undercover investigations. How many of you have seen undercover footage of factory farms or slaughterhouses, either at a talk or on the internet, by a show of hands? Yeah, it looks like most of you have seen this kind of footage. It's really horrifying to watch, isn't it? So Mercy for Animals is known for our undercover investigations work. We've conducted over 60 investigations in the USA, in Canada, in Mexico, of dairy farms, egg farms, chicken farms and slaughterhouses, hog farms and livestock auctions, just to name a few. And this is the area that we're best known for. In my opinion, undercover investigations are one of the most powerful and impactful forms of advocacy. And that's because there's no better way to show people, to explain to people, to make people realize what these animals are going through than showing them so they can see for themselves. So it is an incredibly powerful tool, but it's a very difficult process. doing undercover investigations, and it's one that's filled with challenges. I'm going to explain to you what this process entails. We have investigators who go undercover. They travel to rural areas, travel to agricultural areas, and they apply for jobs in factory farms and slaughterhouses. And they typically go to work at the first place that hires them. So most often, these places that we do our investigations in are chosen completely at random. They're wired with a tiny hidden camera so that they can document what's happening to the animals, what's happening all around them. But they do their jobs at these factory farms and slaughterhouses that they get hired to do, just like any other worker. We do this important service because without our investigators, no one would know what's actually going on inside of these places. The animal agriculture industry is really built on secrecy. They don't want anyone knowing what happens inside, and that's because the truth is so shocking and so horrifying that people would be appalled if they saw. The animal agriculture industry wants us to believe one thing. I mean, look how beautiful this scene is. Beautiful field, red barn, animals happily grazing outside. The truth is quite a different story. This is a typical example of a factory farm in the United States. You don't see any animals. They're all inside these windowless, huge warehouses and sheds, where they stay for their entire lives until the day that they're transported to slaughter. To give you a sense of our undercover video footage in action, I want to play a couple videos. They're not very graphic, and this video footage is narrated by, one second. Oh, sorry, thank you. This video footage is narrated by one of our former undercover investigators who worked for us for a few years. After he finished doing investigations for us, he went to law school. And now he's a lawyer for Mercy for Animals. And the footage that I'm going to play first is some of our undercover investigations of the egg industry. So it's just a very short clip, 1 minute. Please take a look.
Cows have great memories. They can remember a face for years. Maybe that's because they're so outgoing. Most cows have a best friend and a group they prefer to hang out with, almost like a high school clique. But as I found out, cows on most modern farms spend their lives packed into filthy concrete stalls or crammed into small mud lots. Their tails are cut off without painkillers, and workers often beat, stab, and kick cows to get them to move. We saw this happen all the time. What I remember most about the dairy farm I worked at were the babies. The standard practice is to immediately separate them from their mom just a day or two after they're born. Many are chained by the neck in solitary pens. At the farm I was at, these calves were often freezing to death. I mean, literally. I remember sitting down with one calf and spending some time with her. When I got up to leave, she started bellowing after me. I came back later in the day to check on her, and she's dead. That's pretty much the way things went there.
So you can see now how the footage inside of these places, documenting what's happening, is the most powerful way of telling all of you what these animals are forced to endure. I have another video, again, very short, just 1 minute long, on the egg industry that I'd like to show you. It's more of our undercover footage. I hope that's the
I think
right
it's still the cow slide.
Cows.
Okay. I'm sorry, there seems to be some problem with the slides, but I will move on. For those of you who are interested in seeing more of our video footage, please visit our website, mercyforanimals.org. We have a page dedicated to our investigations, showing all of our investigative footage from the 60+ investigations that we've conducted. So The video that I showed you, it's horrifying, right? It makes you see this, you see what the animals are experiencing, and you say, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to consume these products. Well, the animal agriculture industry is impacted by this undercover footage negatively, because people stop buying their products. People don't want to participate in this cruelty. So they are making it harder and harder to do investigations. They are trying to keep groups like Mercy for Animals out of their factory farms and out of their slaughterhouses. Here are some examples. They give tips on how to spot an undercover investigator. They circulate the names and pictures of our investigators to the other factory farms. So they say, if you see this person coming to apply, don't hire them. So they're doing things like this to keep us out of their facilities. And that's why our undercover investigations are so important. Our investigators are the eyes and the ears of the public. They shine a light on what's happening in modern day food production. They are the only meaningful watchdogs that we have to protect animals and to guard against extreme animal cruelty. And ultimately, we as consumers have a right to know this information. We want to know what our money is going to support. We have the right to know that so that we can make informed choices. So investigations are very risky. So why do we do them? They're risky, they're difficult, they're expensive. Investigations form the backbone of Mercy for Animals' work. Our video footage from inside of factory farms and slaughterhouses are used in every other area of our advocacy to get the best results possible. There's only so much that my words will convey. If I tell you the animals are beaten, the animals are kicked, the animals are neglected. Sure, you understand that, but they don't convey, even the pictures don't convey the reality of what's happening. And that's why investigations are such an effective tool. So some examples of how we've used our investigations are to enforce existing laws, pass new laws, change corporate policies to improve conditions for animals, and most importantly, to educate the public, to raise public awareness. I'm going to talk about each one of these areas and give you some examples of how we've used this undercover footage to make significant gains for farmed animals. And over the years, the investigations that we've conducted and then what we've done with those investigations have led to some really incredible victories in the farmed animal protection movement. So the first area I'll talk about is the legal advocacy department. And as general counsel, I oversee the legal department and the team of lawyers. We have 4 lawyers in the US and 2 lawyers in Brazil. And we're looking to hire lawyers now in India, in Mexico, and in Asia. So in this department, my department, the 2 areas that we've focused on the most are enforcing existing laws and pushing for stronger legal protections for farmed animals. The sad truth is that every single time we send an investigator inside of a factory farm or inside of a slaughterhouse, we document the workers abusing those animals so violently, so maliciously, that those workers' acts constitute criminal animal cruelty. Every state in the US, in every province in Canada, as well as on the federal level, in every country that we've been working in so far has at least one law protecting animals. And every time we send an investigator into one of these places, we document workers breaking those laws. That's the sad reality of what's happening here. So we use our investigative footage as evidence to turn it over to law enforcement authorities to get these people and these companies convicted of animal cruelty. We have conducted over 60 undercover investigations. Those 60 undercover investigations have led to 6 raids of factory farms and slaughterhouses by law enforcement and over 75 prosecutions for animal cruelty. Prosecutions of workers, prosecutions of the owners, and prosecutions of the companies. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we go about doing this, the process that we take. So every day when we have an investigator who's in the middle of an investigation, they send in video footage. I review that footage, and you all saw it's a very difficult thing to do, to have to review this footage on a daily basis and to see this level of animal cruelty. But it has to be done to protect these animals. So I review the footage, and I also review the laws of that state or that province or that country, and I document every single violation of the law that I see in the video footage. Then I prepare a detailed legal document with the facts, the incidents of animal cruelty, an analysis of the law, and I go to the area where this factory farm or slaughterhouse is with the investigator. The two of us go and show up at the law enforcement offices, either the sheriff's department or the police department, sometimes the district attorney's office. We submit the detailed legal report as well as the video footage, which is the evidence, and we ask them, you have to hold these people accountable. You have to enforce these criminal laws. As you can imagine, it's an uphill battle. It's really tough to get them to take action. And that's because these factory farms and slaughterhouses are generally in small rural areas. You won't see a factory farm in the middle of downtown Manhattan. You know, the places I go, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Texas, Idaho, rural areas where agriculture is the way of life. These are small towns where everybody knows each other. It's very possible that the sheriff's brother-in-law is a manager at this factory farm. It's oftentimes the factory farm or slaughterhouse is the biggest employer in the county or even in the state. We did a Tyson investigation in Mississippi. Tyson was not only the biggest employer in the county, but the third largest employer in the state. So these local sheriffs, you know, they don't want to rock the boat and upset these powerful corporations. And so it's very tough to get them to prosecute. The fact that we've had 75 prosecutions from just 60 investigations shows how effectively Mercy for Animals is getting this done. We're the leader in this area. We've gotten more prosecutions than any other group, and that's really amazing, because what's been happening in the past 5 years is groundbreaking. In the past 5 years, certainly 10 years ago, it was virtually unheard of to get anyone prosecuted for being cruel to a farmed animal. The thinking was, oh, they're farmed animals, who cares? They're gonna die anyway. Now, the tide is turning, things have changed. We're regularly getting these prosecutions and these convictions of people who abuse farmed animals. And that is really incredible work. And that's because the public is starting to expect and demand that when we document people abusing animals, those people and those companies should be held responsible. This shows a change in people's thinking, and that's really the great success here. People are starting to realize that farmed animals are sentient beings. They feel, they think, they can experience pain and suffering, joy and fear, just like dogs and cats, just like us. And so people are starting to gain in that awareness, which is why they're demanding accountability. What's even better, in my opinion, is that in the past couple of years, we have been getting the companies themselves held accountable. And as you can see here, some of these headlines have to do with the farms themselves, not just the workers, being prosecuted and convicted of animal cruelty. And that's ultimately the most important thing. Because if they just go after the workers, fine, the company will fire the workers, they'll hire some new workers, and then they'll go back to business as usual. The cruelty, the abuse will continue. In order to send a message, in order to stop this cruelty from happening, we have to hold the companies responsible, and that is what Mercy for Animals has been doing. In the past few years, we have successfully worked to help prosecute two of the largest factory farms in Canada, the largest dairy farm in Canada and the largest primary turkey breeder in the world, for animal cruelty, for the actions of their employees. We have also helped to successfully prosecute the owners of 3 different factory farms in the US, one in Tennessee, one in Texas, and one in California. Again, in the past 5 years, 10 years, this would never have happened. And so we're really happy that we're making progress in this area. It's something personally that I'm very proud of and very grateful to be involved in. We've also used our investigations to help push for better laws. Sure, there's a law here, there's a law there. They're really inadequate. We need stronger legal protections for farmed animals. The agricultural industry, as you can imagine, it has billions and billions of dollars. It's very powerful. They have a lot of power politically, they have a lot of power financially. So they don't want improved legal protections for farmed animals. They would, I think, prefer no legal protections for farmed animals. So again, we have an uphill battle, but we are winning. Last November, we had a tremendous victory in Massachusetts. Anyone in the area familiar with what I'm talking about in Massachusetts? Awesome. So you know, State Question 3. It was on your ballot in November. So for those of you who aren't familiar, State Question 3 was a citizen-led ballot initiative. What that means is the citizens themselves decide, I want to enact a law. We get signatures. We pounded the pavement for months and months before, getting people to sign a petition asking for stronger laws. Then we got enough signatures, that question was put on the ballot, the citizens got to vote and enact a law themselves. It's an incredibly powerful legal tool. So last November in Massachusetts, State Question 3 was on the ballot. That question, it banned the intensive confinement of farmed animals. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on, but farmed animals, mother pigs, egg-laying hens, and baby calves are confined in cages so small they can't spread their limbs or turn around. So in Massachusetts, this method of production would be banned under this law. More importantly, the law banned the sale of any products made using these intensive confinement systems in Massachusetts. So it had a way of impacting not just the animals in Massachusetts, but the animals in other states whose products were sold in Massachusetts. As you can see from this slide, 78% of Massachusetts residents voted to enact this law. It is one of the most comprehensive animal welfare measures enacted in a state. It is a huge victory and something that's going to help reduce the suffering of millions of animals. Mercy for Animals did play a role in encouraging Massachusetts voters to take to the polls and vote in favor of this. And one of the main ways that we did that is, just a few months before the vote, we released an undercover investigation. We released an investigation of an egg farm whose eggs were sold in Massachusetts. People saw the horrific suffering that these hens were forced to endure. And that release of the investigation, just a few months before the vote, had an impact on people going to the polls and voting to ban the use of battery cages. The same thing happened in California. There was another ballot initiative several years ago known as Proposition 2, or Prop 2. And like the ballot initiative in Massachusetts, Prop 2 banned the intensive confinement of farmed animals. Just weeks before the vote on Prop 2, Mercy for Animals released 2 undercover investigations of California egg farms. And California voters and citizens were able to see the horrific cruelty and suffering of these hens who were confined in battery cages for nearly their entire lives. The voters were so shocked and horrified by what they saw that they took to the polls in massive numbers, and they made Prop 2 one of the most successful ballot initiatives in the history of California. We've been taking this same tactic in other countries as well. In Mexico, last fall, Mercy for Animals released a series of gruesome investigations of government-owned slaughterhouses, where we documented fully conscious animals just having their throats sawed open or being hit on the head with sledgehammers. That investigation got millions and millions of views, not only in Mexico, but around the world. And we built on that momentum. And we worked with members of Mexico's federal Congress to introduce a bill that would make it a crime to slaughter animals without making them unconscious first, without stunning them first. And that bill is currently pending in Mexican Congress, and we're working with the members of Congress to make it a law. And making such a huge legal change for farmed animals. Another area that I want to talk about is our corporate outreach efforts. We use our investigative footage to gain some really incredible successes on the corporate front. And what we do is we get the largest corporations in the world to improve their animal welfare policies. So when we get a factory farm prosecuted for animal abuse, the animals that are impacted are the animals in that factory farm. Might be a few hundred, might be a few thousand. When we get a corporation like Walmart or Nestle or McDonald's to make a change, the impact can be a few million or potentially a few billion animals whose suffering is reduced. And so that's what we did. Everyone knows Walmart, right? Biggest grocer in the world. It has enormous purchasing power. It has enormous power to set policies and make its suppliers follow those policies. And those policies impact millions and millions of animals around the world. So Mercy for Animals started a campaign against Walmart to stop selling pork products from mother pigs who are confined in gestation crates. Gestation crates are tiny metal crates where mother pigs are confined for nearly their entire lives. They are forced to live in just one position. They can't move. They can't even turn around. They have to stay like that day after day, month after month. It's one of the worst forms of cruelty and abuse imaginable. Pigs are incredibly intelligent creatures. They're more intelligent than dogs. There's evidence that shows that pigs have a higher intellect than small children. They can play video games. They're incredibly intelligent beings. And so being confined in one spot like this not only causes immense physical harm. Their bodies rub against the bars, they get sores, open wounds, but it makes them go crazy. They slowly start to lose their minds. Gestation crates are one of the cruelest factory farming practices in existence. So Mercy for Animals conducted investigation after investigation of Walmart pork suppliers, and we showed that footage to the public. We used those investigations to put pressure on Walmart to enact a policy prohibiting the use of gestation crates in its pork supply chain. You can see here some of the methods that we used. We took the video footage, we held press conferences. We got these stories and the video footage published in the media, on websites, in newspapers. We had petitions, we had demonstrations outside of Walmart stores. This was a multi-year campaign that Mercy for Animals conducted. And finally, after years of our efforts, Walmart announced a policy prohibiting cruel gestation crates in its supply chain. This is a huge victory for farmed animals. And it is a wonderful example of how a small, nonprofit charity can take on one of the biggest corporations in the world and succeed. And that is because the truth is on our side. We took a similar approach with McDonald's. Everyone knows McDonald's. It's a household name now. McDonald's is one of the largest fast food restaurants in the world. So Mercy for Animals undertook a campaign against McDonald's to get them to stop using battery cages in their egg production. Battery cages are tiny wire cages where egg-laying hens are confined for nearly their entire life. Like gestation crates for mother pigs, this is one of the worst forms of animal abuse in existence. There are so many hens crammed into a single cage, as you can see from this picture, that each hen has less space to live her life than this piece of paper. Less than this for her entire life. It's horrifying. Their beaks are painfully burned off without painkillers to keep them from pecking each other to death. Oftentimes they get trapped under the wires of their cages. They can't get to food or water. They slowly suffer and starve or dehydrate. Oftentimes they get trampled to death by the other birds in the cage. This is all done in the name of egg production. The vast majority of eggs that are used and consumed, not only in this country but in the world, are produced through battery cages. So Mercy for Animals conducted multiple undercover investigations of egg factory farms that supplied to McDonald's. And each time we documented the same disturbing and horrifying cruelty. So in 2015, McDonald's, after years of advocacy, announced a policy to only purchase cage-free eggs in the United States and in Canada. But then that wasn't enough. We used that announcement to put pressure on the company and continue to advocate through petitions and websites, people protesting, people calling out, because we wanted similar policies around the world. A year later, McDonald's announced cage-free policy for Latin America, including Mexico and Brazil. Again, the impact now of these policies spares hundreds of millions of egg-laying hens from the worst forms of factory-farmed cruelty. Now, McDonald's was the first company to make this groundbreaking announcement. But that set into motion a domino effect. We used the momentum of the McDonald's policy to urge other companies, restaurants, grocery stores, food service providers to adopt similar cage-free policies. In the past 2 years, the success of our work in this corporate outreach has been tremendous. And the number of hens being spared from this immense suffering is staggering. This is perhaps the most powerful method of advocacy, education, increasing awareness. It's fine to get, the law to be enforced against some companies. It's fine to get those companies themselves to adopt policies. But we, the consuming public, we need to be aware of what these animals are forced to endure, and we need to make changes to prevent them from needlessly suffering. One of the primary areas of our work is consumer education and public awareness. As I mentioned before, the factory farming industry wants to operate in complete secrecy. They don't want us to know what they're doing to these animals. It deliberately keeps these practices hidden from public view. But we, as consumers, have the right to know what's happening inside of these places. And that's where Mercy for Animals comes in. We shine a light on factory farming industry and its cruel practices to educate consumers so that they can make informed choices. Our investigations have received media coverage from all over the world. Tens of thousands of news outlets have published tens of thousands of stories on our undercover investigations. And that brings our undercover footage to the hands of people all over the world so they can see for themselves what's happening. And this helps increase public awareness. And people, they respond exactly how we would expect them to respond. They see this cruelty and they see this unimaginable suffering, and they don't want to be a part of it. Here are just a few testimonials of people who have seen our undercover footage and their reactions. I will never, ever, ever eat meat again. I want to take a step back now and put all of this into context. So I've talked to you about the investigations, how we do them. I've talked to you about how we use our investigative footage in our legal advocacy efforts, how our footage has led to some of the biggest corporations in the world to adopt better policies, and how we use this footage to increase public awareness. But I want to go back to a question I asked at the beginning of this talk. I've told you about what we do. Why? Why do we do this? Why investigations? And the answer is simple: to reduce the greatest amount of farmed animals suffering with our efforts. And it's working. Since 2008, meat consumption in the US has been steadily declining. And that's in large part to the efforts of Mercy for Animals and other farmed animal groups, and it's not coincidental that it was 2008 that investigations, undercover footage, started really coming out there so people could see for themselves. In fact, studies show that every time we release an investigation, the demand for animal products goes down. And it's not just if we release a dairy investigation, demand for milk products goes down. It's a demand for all animal products. So if we release a chicken slaughter investigation, demand for milk, eggs, chicken products, all animal products decreases every time we release an investigation. That is the power of this video footage. Today, we're at the point where about 1/3 of millennials, the younger generations, make an effort to purchase vegetarian and vegan food. So that's why we do investigations. But at the same time, we are improving conditions for farmed animals. We're reducing the suffering of animals through our legal advocacy and our corporate outreach victories. We've had 143 corporate victories worldwide, getting rid of some of the worst forms of institutionalized animal abuse, including bannings on gestation crates, bans on battery cages, bans on veal crates, improving conditions for broiler chickens, how they're raised, how they're killed, dairy cow welfare policies. And we've gotten two of the biggest corporations in the world, Walmart and Nestle, to issue comprehensive animal policies. Farmed animals are among the most abused and exploited beings on Earth. These are social, intelligent beings who experience unimaginable cruelty, unimaginable pain and suffering, all in the name of food. Yet they are every bit as deserving of our kindness and respect and compassion as any other living being. As Harriet Beecher Stowe said, it's a matter of taking the side of the weak against the strong, something the best people have always done. And that's what we at Mercy for Animals are doing, and we're accomplishing a lot. Our corporate outreach victories will result in 150 million hens being freed from battery cages. Our work with Purdue, one of the largest poultry producers in the country, will positively impact by reducing the suffering of 680 million hens who are used for meat. One incredibly exciting development is that Mercy for Animals is taking our efforts and our advocacy, and we're expanding internationally. Over the years, we've refined these efforts through our 4 main program areas. And so now we're able to use that knowledge and those skills to help billions of farmed animals worldwide. We're starting with the countries where meat consumption and production is already high or where it's increasing. And I'm very sorry to say that India is one of those countries. India is a country where the consumption of meat is increasing, primarily chicken, meat, and eggs. So now we're doing work in Canada, Brazil, Mexico, China, and India, in addition to the US. And we're having some great results in those countries. Given this audience and our connection to India, we're hiring for positions in India. We're paid positions. We want to ramp up our efforts. In the coming year, we're going to be focusing on egg production in India through investigations, through legal work, and through corporate outreach. So please see me after the talk if you want to know more about our efforts in India, what you can do to help, if you know people, friends and family back home who might be good fits for positions with Mercy for Animals. And although we're expanding, and although we're making great strides, there is still a lot to be done. There is so much that each one of us can do. First and foremost, we can all go vegan. We can stop supporting these cruel industries financially with our dollars. Sign up for MFA's mailing list. Hopefully you all were able to sign on the sheet. If not, see me after the talk if you came in late and sign up. We'll send you alerts if there's laws in your states, if there's any corporations where you could sign our petition or take some action to help improve their policies. We have a writers group. For those of you who like writing, you could write a short letter in your local paper, email to a lawmaker. Share our video footage with your friends and family. Help us raise the awareness. Share it on your Facebook page, your other social media. And donate to help support our life-saving work. We need your support, and we couldn't do what we do without your support. Mercy for Animals is funded 100% through donations of compassionate people. And so we'd like to count on your support. We do have some magazines, our semi-annual magazines that are on chairs. Please take a copy, read it, learn about what we're doing. And in the middle of that magazine, there's an envelope. If you're interested in supporting our work, I encourage you to please do so. I want to close with a short video, and it is not graphic. It's very uplifting, actually, and I think you will enjoy seeing it.
I want to grow up in a world where kindness is a universal language, where everyone is treated with respect, including animals, where there are no cages, no crates, no slaughterhouses, no cruelty or violence. I want to grow up in a world where animals don't suffer to feed us. I know this world is possible. I feel it in my heart. I see it in my dreams. We have to stand up, speak out. We have to build it. We have to be brave, selfless, and courageous. We have to be united. I know there are heroes among us. They are going undercover to expose the truth. They take to the streets to inspire compassion. They are in the courtrooms pursuing justice. They are driving change, saving lives. They are bringing hope to the hopeless. They are turning fear into freedom, cruelty into kindness. They will be remembered in the history books as heroes. We can make this future a reality. only if we act today.
Every single one of us can be a hero for animals. I hope you'll join us, help us advocate on behalf of these tortured animals to ensure that they're treated with the kindness and respect that they deserve. My contact information is here. I'll take questions now, but please, you can take a photo of this slide, or I can give you my card. If you have questions or you want more information about Mercy for Animals and the work that we do, I would love to hear from you. Thank you very much.